Good morning, everyone. So the French President Macron is preparing his troops for a war with Russia. War is already on the streets in the United Kingdom by the terms of grey warfare, asymmetric warfare, sabotage. Guys, we are moving into I don't even know what to call it now. We're moving into the new phase of this conflict where things are going to start hitting, the home countries, and we're going to start to see an increase of these sabotage attacks, arson attacks, criminal gangs, all these sorts of things that we've been warning about for such a long time. These things are starting to happen now. Guys, if you're in the United Kingdom, just cast your minds back to the summer. Can you remember when there was like this? There was like all of a sudden there was just like lots of fires. All of a sudden, just seemed to break out at storage facilities, and it just seemed very, and I did a video about it. I said, you know what, guys, I'm looking at this now and I'm seeing all these fires break out at these storage facilities. It was like postal services, storage facilities, and it just seemed really weird. We had maybe 3 or 4 in the space of like a week. And the media didn't really cover it, and it just kind of got swept aside as arson, or, nobody knew what the cause was. Now, looking back, looking at what's come out in the media, it kind of gives a lot more weight to the fact that the United Kingdom is under sustained attack. We know the United Kingdom is under sustained attack from cyber attacks because, every now and then you get an outage, you get the government saying we've had a cyber attack. But remember, you're never going to get a private company saying they've had a cyber attack. First of all, you will never, ever get a bank come out and, admit that they've been under a cyber attack, because people will just take their money out of that bank. These things always get put down to a third-party application or an upgrade in security or, something. But, I can't ever remember these things ever happening like 5-10 years ago. We certainly had the internet then. We certainly had upgrades and app downloads and, third-party upgrades. But now in this new phase of war, this grey warfare, this asymmetric warfare, these things happen more often. Now, like I said, you're never going to have a private company come out and say that they've been under a cyber attack, because people will lose trust in that company overnight. They will go bankrupt, and that will be it. That will be the end to that company. Remember, the golden standard for any cyber attack is to cause a financial crisis, whether that is a run on the banks, whether it's a, mass loss of finances, whether it's, however they can do that. It's kind of the golden standard, because once you start, guys, nothing else matters. Once you start messing with people's money, that's when things go drastically wrong. So as a foreign nation, if you're, whether it, as MI5 are claiming, whether it's the Russians, whether it's the Iranian-backed group, whether it's ISIS, Al-Qaeda, doesn't really matter at this point, because all these, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That statement is true. And also with the Iranians and the Russians, these guys are allies anyway. So, I don't think you can, at this point in the world, I don't think you can separate these two entities and say that was a Russian hack, that was an Iranian hack. I think these two, the, what would you call it, the IRGC or the KGB or whatever they have now, there will be obviously different agencies within Russia, within Iran, that deal with this sort of stuff. And of course, these guys, it's my speculation. Obviously, I've got no inside information to say that these guys are working together, other than, I'm looking at this situation objectively and thinking, right, okay, if the West was our collective enemy, would it make sense to pool resources and to develop working relationships between our two countries and our agencies? Would it make sense to pool the resources of the BRICS nations? Of course it would. I did a video earlier on today about how, people are being recruited in the United Kingdom, how little it actually costs to recruit a member of the armed forces, and a lot of this stuff, they give you a little bit of money, then they get a lot of information on you, then they just blackmail you and blackmail you and blackmail you. until, you know, and then once you start on these small steps, and that's how it starts, you know, they will want you to do something very menial, and they'll pay you like the guy got paid £1,500. So again, I don't know what this money was for, but I'm just speculating. They will pay you £1,500 to take a picture of your barracks, you know, and you will, whoever's doing it, they will think, right, okay, anyone can take the picture of this barracks. This is easy. You know, anyone could have taken this picture. The picture could be taken from outside of the wire, outside of the perimeter of the back base. So then this guy or woman, they will take the picture, they will send the picture in, they will take £1,500 or whatever it is. They'll think, oh, that is easy money. I'm well up for this. But that's how they get you. That is how they get you. Then you've got you've got forensic trace, your involvement. You've been selling pictures. You know, straight away, if you don't do as you're told from that day onwards, guess what? They come up to you and they say, listen, unless you want to go to prison for treason or whatever it is, you know, we are gonna, you know, you will do this for us. We're not going to pay you. And if you don't do it, guess what? We're going to give all this information to the government. We're going to give all this information to MI6, MI5, whoever that may be. And then the person will do something more drastic. Maybe this is now, I don't know, information on movements. And the more of this stuff you do, the more you have to do, because the more information the bad guys have on you. So guys, you know, espionage doesn't work. All it does is it drives people, you know, people think they're getting into a good gig, but it's not. You know, most of it starts off at the honeymoon period, whereby you get a little bit of money, you think you're James Bond, you think you're somebody, you know, and then the next thing you know, you're under a lot of stress. You've got the bad guys threatening to take you to prison, saying you're going to have the key thrown away, saying much worse, threatening your family. And, you know, once you go down that road, guys, it is a slippery slope. Anyway, I digress. So President Macron now is preparing for war. The French military are set to do an exercise in Eastern Europe next year. They're calling it like spring. Let me have a look if I can see it quickly. I can't remember what it's called. It's penciled in for the spring in Romania. But again, these large exercises, if you look at the optics of these exercises, look at the optics from the Russians. You know, the Russians will be saying France prepares to invade from Romania or whatever, or, you know, and these are the optics of the things, because remember what happens when the Russians do these big exercises and have these big buildups of troops. Normally you see an invasion. So, you know, while the French, you know, are quite openly saying now that they're preparing for a war with Russia, we've got the streets of the United Kingdom that, if you've been following my channel, guys, I would suspect now the streets of the United Kingdom are flooded with, these said criminal gangs, these agents, these counter agents, whatever you want to call it. You know, these people will be on our streets now. They will have been paid. They will have identified their targets. They will have, you know, they'll be looking at gathering resources, gathering munitions to do whatever they're told to do. Remember from the video yesterday and from what the MI5 chief said, there are people planning to conduct mass murder with firearms and explosives. That's what the MI5 guys are saying, you know. So I can say this openly now because this is readily available on mainstream media. Of course, you know, a lot of these people will try to intercept them, but, you know, guys, the problem is just the mass of people we've had come to this country. We can't keep checks on all these people. So remember what we said about the guy from the British guy, the guy with the Iranian mother who joined the Daniel Khalifa, I think his name was. He joined the military. You know, he then had communications with IRGC, the Iranians. The Iranians wanted him to go to Istanbul for a meeting. So that's where he would have understood his mission, his task, and how to operate. Guys, can you imagine all this done before people even get to the United Kingdom? Can you imagine now if there are Iranian operators, you know, Iranian state operators operating in Cali, operating these, these criminal gangs, operating the people that are coming into the United Kingdom. Can you imagine if these people are briefed before they even get here? Even if this is just 1 in 1,000, you know, even if this is 1 in every even if they only manage to recruit 1 in every 1,000, that is a huge number that's coming to our shores, you know, every month, every week. There is a lot of people now coming over to the United Kingdom that could potentially do us harm. This is not, you know, this is going from when I started talking about this months ago, and people were thinking it was just, oh, hang on, guys, I've not got my banner on, you know, and people were thinking it was far-fetched. MI5 are talking about it now. The security services are talking about it now. I can imagine that somewhere in some room you have got, you know, the police, MI5 special branch, the Home Secretary's department, and everybody is going crackers trying to deal with this situation. And you look at the political elite and it just seems like they're walking aimlessly into this situation. I genuinely don't know why we can't stop the migrants coming to the United Kingdom. You know, if they are a security threat, which I can only speculate that the government and the intelligence services have some information on this. I can only speculate on, you know, the amount of information that they have, but it does become very difficult to identify people if they're recruited in Calais, if they're recruited in, you know, if they're recruited in wherever they come from, in, you know, in Africa, in the Middle East, in, you know, a lot of Albanians are coming over. If they're recruited in their hometowns, in their home cities, it's virtually impossible to identify who these people are. And then they come all the way over to the United Kingdom. They cross over. We put them in a hotel. We give them money. We pay for them. We pay for their, you know, we give them human rights, etc. You know, which of course they should have. The problem becomes, when are these guys, you know, and we've already seen sleeper cells activated across Europe. We've already seen this is a real threat. So, you know, at some point this is going to happen. And I think, you know, we're moving closer and closer to that day. That day is going to come when the war in Ukraine escalates further to NATO boots on the ground, and when the United States actually enter this conflict with more boots on the ground. It could be argued that the United States have already entered the conflict in the Middle East by striking Houthi targets in Yemen. You know, guys, these escalations are happening day by day. I'm going to do another video later on today about the situation in Ukraine and in the Middle East. But guys, the situation in the UK at the moment is critical. And at some point, we're going to reach a critical mass and everything is just going to explode. It really is, guys. Remember what the MI5 guy said yesterday. There were plans, and I would assume there are still people planning this, you know, but the MI5 guy said there were plans to commit mass murder with firearms and explosives on the streets of the United Kingdom. Obviously, these have been foiled, but guys, how many are out there that have not been foiled? How many are out there that are just waiting to be activated? How many sleeper cells have conducted their training? They've conducted their rehearsals. They've got their kit. They've got their equipment. They've got it hidden somewhere. And they're just waiting to be activated. And one of these activation calls, it doesn't have to be something like an, you know, the activation call doesn't have to be what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't have to be like a phone call or a text message. The activation code could be, right, guys, you know, if you guys see a certain building in Iran destroyed, if you guys see the Iranians do a certain attack on Israel, if you guys see a certain geopolitical event happen, that is your call to mobilize. That's your call to mobilize and to strike these targets you guys have been pre-programmed with. There's no way to stop this, guys. There really isn't any way to stop this. Tell me now, how do you stop this? There's no financial trace. There's no communications. All that these sleeper cells could be waiting for is a global event to happen. And when that global event, like imagine 9/11, imagine if these sleeper cells were already in place pre 9/11 and they were told, right, guys, listen, if you see a global event such as X, Y, or Z happen, that is your activation call to activate and execute these targets that you've been pre-programmed with, you've been pre-funded with, you've got the equipment, and that's what your task is to go and do. How do we stop that? We don't have the police force to stop that. We don't have the military. We don't have the numbers in the military to stop that. Remember, there are more migrants in hotels right now than we have military in barracks. So how do we stop that? Guys, we really are at a knife edge at the moment, and I feel we're sleepwalking into oblivion. Anyway, guys, that is it. I'm going to leave it there. That was, you know, the little warning about the United Kingdom, the state of things on the streets. Guys, I'm going to Mac to Grid, and I'll get you guys another video later.